Hi, I'm Jamie with Chima Freight Lines. Let's talk about pre- and post-trip inspections. To do that, we want to identify the what, why, when, and how a pre- or post-trip inspection is to be conducted. First, what? What is a pre-trip or post-trip inspection? A pre- or post-trip inspection is an intentional walk around the truck and or trailer looking for developing maintenance needs, damage, or any potential defects. Number two, why? Why is it important to do a pre- or post-trip inspection? Well, first of all, it's required by the FMCSA. So therefore, secondly, it's a Chima Freight Lines company policy. It keeps you safe, it keeps the motoring public safe, and it also helps us keep costs down as we identify developing maintenance needs before they get much more complex. When? When is it appropriate to do a pre- or post-trip inspection? Easy. A pre-trip inspection is to be done before, daily, a piece of equipment, truck or trailer, is put into service. A post-trip is to be conducted daily after a truck or trailer is done being used for the day. And finally, how? How is a pre-trip or post-trip inspection to be conducted? Easy. We've boiled it down to 3 simple steps. First, you're going to log it. Secondly, do it. Conduct the inspection. Thirdly and finally, you'd send the DVIR. Let me show you how. Here we are inside of the cab of the truck. Time to log our inspection. Since doing your inspection is an on-duty event, we need to go to our ELD and change our duty status. On the PeopleNet, from the home screen, tap ELD. Find your status button, tap that. This is an on-duty event, so we'll tap on-duty driver and select from one of the predefined annotations. There's one specifically for inspection. Select that and hit next. Next, we'll conduct the inspection. Step 2, do it. Before I step out of the vehicle, I want to make sure that my key is in the on position. I've got my light switched on. I want to ensure that my transmission is in neutral, that my parking brake is set, and I also want to use my light test button so that as I'm doing my external walk around, I can make sure all my lights are operational. Now, let's step outside of the cab of the truck. As I exit the vehicle using 3 points of contact, I want to make sure I locate my permit book. Make sure I have all of my permits that are required. I might not need to do this daily, but you want to keep an eye on expiring permits, like your annual vehicle registration, your insurance card, and your IFTA decal permit. I've got some supplies in my jockey box, so I think I'm going to start there. Inside the driver's side jockey box, I've got some cool things. My inverter, I've got fluids to top off in case I need additional coolant, lubricant, oil, engine oil, or with windshield washer fluid. I've got some load straps in case that's required at my shipper. I've got a fire extinguisher. I want to make sure it's been recently inspected, and also the needle is in the green, which it is, all good there. I've got gloves. Let's go ahead and put those on now. You'll also notice I've got some paper towels, so we're prepared to check our oil. I've also got a tire thumper, a flashlight, which I'll hang on to for now, and my tire pressure gauge so I can check my PSIs periodically. Right now I just want to grab some paper towel and we'll take a look at our engine compartment. Check all of our lids to make sure they're secured tightly. Diesel tank, DEF tank. Let's open up the hood. As I'm doing so, I want to make sure I look at all my marker lights, all my forward lights, turn signals are all working properly. Starting here on the passenger side, want to make sure I got no flat spots, so I'm checking for tire pressure. I'm also checking my tread depth. All right, let's check our brakes out. Inside each wheel, you're gonna have 2 brake pads. You want to make sure you check them both to make sure they're not past the wear indicator. I'm looking at my windshield washer fluid there to make sure there's plenty in the reservoir. I'm looking at my clamps, making sure they're on properly. I've got my belt back here. I want to make sure I have good tension in that. I'm looking at the general condition and appearance of the engine itself, looking below the engine to see if there's any pooling fluids that might indicate that there's a leak. I don't see anything of concern on this side, so I'll work my way over to the driver's side next. Repeat the process on this side, checking for any potential flats on this side, checking my tire for tread depth, checking the wheel area to see if there's any leaky wheel seals. I want to check to see if there's any slop or play in the steering column itself, make sure there's no missing components apparent, checking my coolant. between the max and the minimum. Go ahead and send my thumper down and take a look at the brake capacity on these brake pads and make sure they're not past the wear line. Looking good there. I'm also looking at my suspension, making sure there's no issues there. Now let's check our oil. I've got my paper towels we grabbed earlier today. I want to make sure to get a fresh level on this, so I'm going to wipe the old oil off. Put it back down. Make sure it's properly seated. Give it just a second. See how it looks. Oh yeah, plenty of oil. All right. Now let's continue on down the driver's side. Let's take a quick check here at our battery compartment. It's right behind this piano hinge door. I've got my air lines I can run some air through to make sure there's no moisture. Also want to make sure I got proper permitting here. I've got my IFTA decal and I've got a current tractor annual inspection decal, which checks out, so very good there. Let's check out the connections here to the tractor. It's all color coded, so let's take a look first at our grommets on our blue airline. Looks good. Plug in our electrical. Make sure that's seated back all the way so that the lid closes over that tooth. And again, our red airline grommet looks good. All right, I also have an annual inspection decal right here on the trailer. That looks to be in good order. Now checking mud flaps. I got a couple tire sets here. Again, I want to make sure I use my thumper to make sure there's no flat spots. I want to make sure I look into the fifth wheel to confirm that my jaws are closed. Again, another great reason to have a handy dandy flashlight. You can look right up in those jaws and confirm your kingpin is latched properly. While I'm down here, I can also get a good eye on my airbags, both left and right. Mud flap hangers, right and left, and all my lights appear to be working just fine. Now I'm inspecting my landing gear apparatus, making sure that there's no debris on the foot and that it's functioning properly. I'm also taking a look at my DOT tape all along the bottom of the trailer. I'm checking all my lights, including the trailer sidewall to make sure that there's no damage. Side skirt is mounted and hanging properly. Under here, I want to make sure all my airline hoses aren't hanging too low. I'm also taking this opportunity to look for all my slide axle locking pins. There's 2 on each side. I want to make sure I see those engaged properly. I have one right there and my other one right there. Checking my tires. Also inspecting tread depth. One thing I also like to add while I'm doing my inspection is checking my 40-foot decal. If this load is going to go to or through California, the center of the rearmost axle must be at or in front of this 40-foot sticker. In this case, we're set. Toward the back of the trailer, I want to check all my cross members to make sure I got good floor integrity. I'm also checking the back of each wheel, checking my braking capacity, making sure suspension looks intact and everything looks pretty good here. Checking my ICC bumper, checking all my lights to make sure that they work. License plate light is illuminating. I've got a good seal all the way around my doors on both sides. Hinges look good, lights all look good. If this trailer is loaded and has a shipper seal on it, we're not going to inspect the inside of the trailer. But if it is an empty trailer, we want to open the doors, inspect what's inside. So let's take a look. You always want to make sure you latch your trailer door open, no matter what trailer type you have. This style, the chain with the tooth or the truss lock system with the 2 latches to make sure you keep yourself safe from a gusty, windy day. Now our motto at Chima Freight Lines is excellence delivered. And I look inside this trailer, what I'm looking for is daylight, pooling water. I don't want there to be any debris or any previous product from the last load. And I do see a little bit of debris on here. And so I want to make sure that this trailer is ready to impress our customer. So before I take it off to the shipper, I'm going to sweep it out and make sure it's nice and clean. Let's take this over to the dumpster. All right. Yeah, that's more like it. All right, let's inspect the passenger side. Again, checking to make sure all my lights look good. Here again now on the passenger side, I'm reversing the process. I'm looking at the inside of each wheel, checking my brake pads, checking my suspension out, checking the cross members underneath the floor of the trailer, and everything seems to look good. Checking out my mud flaps, those are hanging on nicely. Checking my PSIs, checking on my tread depth, looking good. Checking my slide axle locking pins, I can see both of those are engaged. Self-inflating tires all look good, no leaky wheel seals. Checking out my airline hoses to make sure they're not hanging too low. Cross members of the floor look good. Again, DOT tape and sidewall of the trailer look to be in good shape. My lights are all functioning. Side skirt looks great, hanging properly. Another inspection of the landing gear on the passenger side. Foot is free of debris. On this side again, making sure my mud flap is hanging properly. Another inspection, all my airbags seem to be working properly. Checking this set of tires for flat spots and tread depth. Diesel tank lid, all nice and tight. Let's check our jockey box on the passenger side. Very good. Inside here we have our emergency triangles. We have our chains and bungees. So we're ready for any inclement weather. Now let's continue the inspection on the inside of the cab. First of all, we want to make sure that our seat belt is functioning. Get my seat belt right here. Latch it just to make sure it's nice and secure to keep me safe. I also want to make sure all my gauges look to be working properly. I'm checking also while I'm sitting in the driver's seat that I can comfortably position my seat so I can reach both the brake and the throttle. And then I'm also positioned so I can see out of all of my mirrors from my vantage point. If I need to make any mirror adjustments, I've got the controls right here. I'm also going to make sure that I'm going to check my windshield wipers and examine my windshield to make sure that there's no cracks, especially in the driver's line of sight. I'm also examining the cabin to make sure there's no clutter on my dashboard or anywhere in the truck that might be a hazard as I'm driving down the road. You also want to make sure to check that your low air alert is working properly. To do so, you want to stab the pedal until the PSI dips below a certain threshold. If you look at the dash, you can see that there is a warning indicator, brake air supply pressure low. So the indicator is working just fine. To rebuild air, start the truck and give it a few moments to rebuild. Once you're back up to about 100 PSI, you should be all set. All right, thirdly and finally, we need to send the DVIR, Driver Vehicle Inspection Report. For that, we return to the PeopleNet. If you look here on the home screen, to fill out your DVIR, you need to look for the driver option and tap. Toward the bottom, you find an option that says Inspections. Select that one. It'll ask you questions about the inspection you just completed. Was it new or existing? Most always, you'll select the new option. If you want to change a previously entered DVIR, you'll select Existing. But this is going to be a new one, so a new one we will select. Boop. Was it a pre-trip, an inter-trip, a post-trip, or a DOT type inspection? This was a pre-trip. Now, this is a form message for the DVIR. It'll ask you questions about the inspection you just completed, starting with your driver code. Were there any defects to the tractor? Yes or no? I didn't find any defects today. What was the trailer number that you inspected? My trailer was H53460. Were there any defects to the trailer? Yes or no? If I select no, I would be done. I would just hit done and we would conclude. Say for example I did find a defect. I would select yes, and then it would open up another field where I could describe the defect found. If you type that up, I found a defective light on my license plate, a copy would be sent to your driver manager and also to the shop. But today, we didn't find any defects, so I can select no and continue. Now you've seen how we conduct a pre or post-trip inspection here at Chima Freight Lines. We log it, we do it, we send the DVIR. Whether it's sunny, whether it's rainy, whether it's morning or night, regardless of the environment, we want to consistently check our equipment to make sure it's safe out on the roadway for you and the motoring public. Thank you.